As usual, I'm starting recording by recording a black screen, just like I began my Never17 playthrough. You can use the history bar to see that eventually I get into the game. It's just going to be a pretty long introductory speech. Could go as long as like 10 minutes. If that's going to bore you, just skip past it. So I intended to start recording this, which is a new Let's Play, somewhere around early December of 2021, when I was going to start making public my Let's Plays of, well, the important one would be Never17. Once that started being published and people were able to watch it, I'd start recording a Let's Play of the next game in its series, which would be the Infinity series. But I'm starting to record early. It's October 30th of 2021, a day before Halloween. And here's why. So I started uploading the episodes of Never17 to YouTube. Several in rapid succession. I have a way of doing that. And I noticed that close to every single one of them was being claimed as using music that was under the ownership of Mages, which Mages is a record label that distributes video game music in Japan. I've had a couple copyright claims happen on my channel. Most Let's Play YouTubers have many copyright claims on their channel. It's not unusual to have a lot of them if you're not familiar with YouTube. But those two that I've had previously, they were both not legitimate claims. One of them was on some public domain piece that someone did a parody of, and the other was on a piece of game music that the original owner was not claiming, and someone made a cover of and then was claiming. And I managed to get those lifted various ways. But these ones that were given by Mages, I could tell were legitimate because the game composer for these games, his name is Takumi Nakazawa. Actually, his music was actually sold by Mages and 5BP as like these albums, these soundtrack albums, these CDs that you could buy with the soundtrack music for these games. So I'll have to, if I want to keep my channel free of copyright claims, because I don't really like them, I'm going to have to edit out certain pieces of the background music for the game in my Never17 playthrough. And I can do that because my background music and my voice are on separate tracks, and I still have all the raw recordings before I edited them together. I always hold on to all of those just in case something like this happens. Unfortunately, though I have a way of separating game audio from my audio, I don't have a way of separating game voice acting from game background music. And so if I mute the game background music, I will mute the voice acting, which was in Japanese, along with it. Now, in Never17, that wasn't such a big deal because I just kind of disrespected the Japanese voice acting. I talked over it, which isn't good, and I eventually am going to want to learn how to read Japanese because of 12 Ribbon. So I thought for later games in the series, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to wait for the Japanese voice line to be spoken before I start talking, both so I can hear what the Japanese sounds like and such that the Japanese voice actors can actually portray how the personality of the characters. We actually get what the game developers told the voice actors to portray. That's some information that's lost if you don't let that play. And so if I were to do the same process again with this game, I would sometimes be muting the Japanese voice acting, which you will see in this game also happens, and I didn't want to do that. Also, having copyrighted music on the channel at all makes me uncomfortable. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna play this with no background music. But first I gotta check not only if the background music is owned by Mages, but also whether or not the opener music is owned. So I did these test uploads where I upload just the opening credit music, and I figured out it was not claimed. Then I just to check, uploaded a piece of background music, it was claimed, which is what I'd expect because the opening credit music for Never17 was also not claimed. It was just the background music in game. And I was messing around with the game so much, opening it, running it, uploading pieces of the soundtrack from it, that I just sort of caught the bug for the game and really wanted to play it. Especially with my knowledge that a lot of people consider this game to be very good. I just got a little excited about it, so I decided to just play it because I was just excited to play it and I couldn't wait. I lost my patience. So, what is this game? Now that I've kind of explained why I lost my patience and then just decided that I was just going to start Let's Playing it. It's called Ever17, The Out of Infinity. That's somewhat of an awkward phrase in English. I believe it probably made more sense in Japanese, like The Escape from Infinity or something like that. It's in the same series, quote unquote, we'll get into that later, as Ever7, The End of Infinity, which I just posted a Let's Play of, by the time this comes out. Of course, I haven't posted it yet. I've already recorded it, I posted it. It was developed by KID, which stands for Kindle Imagine Develop, which I believe somewhere around 2006, 2005 went bankrupt. And then also Cyberfront worked on it. And then maybe 5BP bought the rights to some of the assets of KID. Excuse me, I got the hiccups there. Just ate a big meal. Anyway, they no longer sell any of their discs. We'll get to that. It was released for Dreamcast and PlayStation 2 on August 29th, 2002. And there's no localizations, it was released in Japanese. It was then released for Windows on May 16th, 2013. And then it was released in English on all the platforms that previously had been released on December 20th, 2005. This was not an English dub, but the voice acting is still in Japanese. But the text was made English, and there was some like English translations in the opening cutscene that were kind of patched onto it. Similar to what you saw in Ever17 Eternal Edition. But unlike Ever17, with where I play as a fan translation, because that was never localized into English, this was actually localized into English by people contracted out by KID to do so. So this is like, I guess you'd call it an official localization. And then in 2011, 5BP made a remake of it and they released it for Xbox. Now, I actually decided to try to look, so I don't have an Xbox. I decided, well, what if there's a way to play Xbox games on a PC? Even though it's not an Xbox, it's a PC. And there is something called Xbox Play Anywhere. I'm not sure whether or not you actually have to have the hardware on Xbox to get the game started to do Xbox Play Anywhere, or you can just play the Xbox game on a PC. But you can only play games, you can only use the Xbox Play Anywhere if it's on Microsoft Digital Library for that, which Ever17 is not. In fact, it's not in the Xbox Digital Library at all. And so in order to play it, you need the disc, the physical, and you need an Xbox that can accept physical, which if we really get the new Xboxes, not getting like an old Xbox 360 on eBay, which is theoretically something you could do, you would need the Series X as opposed to the Series S Xboxes. Now, the Xbox Series S you can buy for about $300 right now pretty easily. The Xbox Series X, there's a shortage, they are scalped, it's like really hard to get a hold of that. And that's the version that has the physical disk drive. But getting a disc for the Xbox version is somewhat difficult because it's no longer in production. So the price has gone up dramatically. You're going to be paying on eBay at least $100, and it's not a $100 game, up to like $500 for this disc. So if you're curious about the Xbox version. However, the PC discs, you can get the disc images online for free. I'm not going to judge you too much. There might be something legally sketchy in some countries having to do with that, so be warned. I'm going to be playing the PC version, by the way. So, that's kind of the background. The story was written by Kotaro Uchikoshi. Uchikoshi. I just started learning how to pronounce the hiragana yesterday, and I'm just reading the romanization of it. So I'm not very familiar right now with Japanese pronunciation, but my guess is it's Kotaro Uchikoshi. Um, and as I said, the music composer was Takumi Nakazawa. And that's part of the main reason why like you want to play this is because he has written the Zero Escape series, which various Let's Players on the internet praises, at least 999 is the greatest visual novel of all time. For someone to say that Zero Escape Virtue's Last Reward, started saying virtual for some reason, is instead, but whatever. Okay, so that's what the game is, and how it's hard to get. What do I know about the game? Well, first I played Never 7. And so, well, first off, I heard about these because I just kind of Googled Kotaro Ushikoshi a couple years ago when I first heard about Zero Escape. And I saw the Wikipedia pages for Never 7, Ever 17, Remember 11. And so I've seen some of the Wikipedia page for Ever 17. Wikipedia pages are not very good about protecting you from spoilers. Oftentimes there will be spoilers in the first line. But at the time, I didn't know I was going to be making Let's Plays of them, so wasn't really that careful. However, I can say with confidence that I have not absorbed nor saw any information on the plot section of the page for Ever 17 because I intentionally dodged it. So I don't know any of the plot, and I still don't know any of the plot of Ever 17. However, I did manage to read the part where it described the Xbox remake, and that's how I knew about their Xbox remake, is from that Wikipedia page. I have read more thoroughly the Wikipedia page for Never 7, and it actually says some things about Ever 17 in there carelessly. And Wikipedia is supposed to be just a general, like an information succinct, just give you the facts kind of thing, so I won't fault it too much for that behavior. It described Ever 17 as somewhat of a dating sim. After I played it, I would describe it as not Ever 17, Never 7. As a dating sim, I would describe it as a harem game. It's not quite a harem game because you actually manage to get the girls at the end, but it's very much like a harem genre. It's a type of genre that, as I said in previously many times, that Doki Doki Literature Club is trying to parody. But the reception to the more sci-fi elements of Never 7 was good, and so in Ever 17, Uchikoshi put more of those elements into Ever 17 and less romance. Now, judging from the opening, which I did watch because I had to test the copyright, there still looks like there is some romance elements, and the Wikipedia page implies that by saying that the third game, Remember 11, has no romance elements. Well, it's really weird for a game to have no romance elements, so that is weird, but it seems to imply that Ever 17 does have some, and potentially a lot, we'll see. But it's not a dating sim proper, or a harem game it appears like Never 7 was. I also know, I don't know where I picked this up, but it seems like Ever 17 was more popular. It's kind of evidenced by the localized, didn't even bother to localize Never 7. And so just more people have played it, especially seeing Reddit posts where they say, I played Ever 17 but never 7. So a little later, I watched somebody's YouTube video where they did a tier list of visual novels on their opinion. They were very good at not having any spoilers for either Never 7 or Ever 17, but they said that Ever 17 was really good, and they put it in their A tier, leaving only thing in their S tier being, like, I think, Zero Escape Virtue's Last Reward, or something, maybe another game, maybe like Danganronpa 2 or something, but so it's not the best, but they said this particular person really liked Ever 17 and liked it a lot better than Never 7. He also liked it a little bit better than Remember 11, but he said that the pacing in Remember 11 was better. Now, where do I would get from that? Well, this is a really long speech. Never 7 had a time loop plot. This is going to be spoilers for Never 7, because I presume if you're watching me play Ever 17, you watched me play Never 7 first. Just warning you. Although that didn't come out before the warning, I just oopsed. There's a time loop. And the time loop is 6 days long. That's why it's called Never 7. There might be another reason, but that's part of the big mystery behind the title. That implies that Ever17 has a time loop that's 16 days long. And Remember 11 has a time loop that's 10 days long. 16-day time loop, having played Never 7, seems really, really long. That's almost 3 times the length of the time loop of Never 7. So I can understand how maybe part of the middle of this game could drag, and why the pacing of Remember 11 might be much better. So a bit of a spoiler, like a weird little subtle implied spoiler I picked up in that video. Okay, so what next? When I was looking up guides for Never 7 to finish that playthrough, I saw comments on Reddit like, you don't need to understand Never 7 to play Ever17. In other words, you don't need to have played Never 7 to understand Ever17. The games are not connected. Okay, and then I've also seen things like Never 7 and Ever17 occur in the same universe. And I've also seen on the first line of the Wikipedia page for 12 Riven that it's a spin-off. And I've seen in the first line of the Wikipedia page for Code 18, it's a reboot. Now, in a game where it's not connected, like there isn't recurring characters or reoccurring settings from the previous game, but it still has the same sort of mechanics, so it's in the same genre, I call it a reboot if the stories aren't connected. That's my definition of a reboot. So if you say the stories aren't connected, I would think it would be called a reboot. I would think instead of a sequel. However, Code 18 is supposed to be a reboot in contrast to the previous 3 games, which means it's somehow more of a reboot than Ever17 was of Never 7. So somehow it's not as much of a reboot as Code 18 somehow, even though the description of it not being connected, you don't need to know Never 17 to play. Now, you don't have, what's Never 17? The games, these titles are way too similar. You don't have to play Never 7 to understand Ever17. How is that, less of a reboot? And then 12 Riven is a spin-off in comparison. So it's apparently somehow not connected to Never 7. You don't need to know Never 7 to play Ever17, but then somehow it's not a reboot or spin-off. And it's somehow in the same universe. So that's kind of confusing. A lot of these Japanese mystery games, you might get confusing stuff like that because how the game relates to the previous one is some mystery that's revealed at the end is kind of a spoiler. And so the language you get is confusing. But usually, if that case would be the opposite, they tell you it's a reboot, but you still have to see the previous game. That's an indication that it's not a real reboot. This one's the opposite, where they said it's not a reboot, but you don't have to play the previous game. It's kind of backwards. I don't really know what to make of that. Lastly, someone came up with a patch for the Windows physical version of this game, which is what I'm playing. And the patch does some visual upgrades to the user interface and updates some of the text. I did not apply the patch intentionally because I wanted to play it how it originally was. In the patch notes, there is some disrespect for spoilers. And so it says things like, broken text has been fixed in Sora's route. Well, if you're familiar with Never 7, you may realize that characters having a route is a reserved detail. What I mean by that is, there might be a character that doesn't have a route at first, but then it's revealed they have a route later, and it's slowly unlocked or something. So saying a character has a route is a spoiler in itself, potentially. Also, that the routes are organized by character. That occurs in some Uchikoshi games and some not. That's kind of also a spoiler. I kind of would expect it because Never 7 was a dating sim, and Never 17 is supposed to be a sequel in the same universe, so you expect it kind of to have similar mechanics. but it's still kind of a spoiler. There was also a section that was called route suggestions in the patch notes. I managed to bounce my eyes off of it. I didn't see any of that, but it was like not under a tag or anything. Like it was just right there in the open. Route selections and ugh. Okay. So that's that. I also know I also know the names of the characters because I've seen the opening crawl. And lastly, trying to find the price of or see if it's possible to still buy an Xbox disc. I did encounter someone's Reddit posting it on the Reddit posts, where he used the following verbiage. We all know that the Xbox version is vastly inferior to the original. Well, that makes me feel good about playing the original. I know from the Wikipedia page when describing the Xbox version that the story was very much rearranged. They added a new routes and endings to it. So it was pretty maraudered when they did this. They didn't just do a visual upgrade. Okay, and it's somewhat upsetting to fans of a game when they make a remake that's different than the original, because then it's like people now will play the game you played, but they won't get the same experience you did, and you're like, but they won't be it's not the same experience that you had and you loved so much, and it can make you upset. And regardless if the new version or the remake you would have liked just as well if that was the first version you had played. Yeah, there tends to be kind of a bias that way, so it doesn't necessarily mean that, like, objectively, if you can objectively rate a game, which I argue you may not be able to, that the Xbox version is actually vastly inferior. But thanks for the help in making me feel good about my choice of which one I'm going to play. Cool. Lastly, rules for mystery games. It's nice if you don't put spoilers in the comments, but this will all be pre-recorded, so you won't be able to spoil me. The only people you'd spoil if you put spoilers in the comments are people that are experiencing the game the first time through my Let's Play. And then they like to immediately look at the comments after watching the video. You can spoil those people. You wouldn't spoil me, though. And, of course, I will not go back and look at previous footage unless to make sure that it got recorded okay. I won't go back and look at previous recordings in order to, like, review plot points, because these games, the author of these games designed them to manipulate you based on how much they reveal and conceal. And if you look at something more times than the author expected, you're going to figure out things at a different rate than the author expected, and your experience of playing the game will be not like how the author designed. So it's somewhat disrespectful to the game maker to do that. And I want to not cheat on making predictions about what's going to happen next. Cool. So I'll take a little break, but you won't see it because I can pause encoding and launch the game now. Launching. Another detail is that I'm playing it windowed because it blurs, aspect ratio goes bad otherwise. Oops. Okay. Okay, I don't know if the menu music is kind of something that's gonna get me, but anyway, um, background music is important for establishing the mood or like the atmosphere of a game, and playing it without a game without the background music on is a big loss. So I'm losing quite a bit by doing this. It's just that I don't want claims. And the background music for Never 7 was actually really good. And this is the same game composer, so I expect that this music, background music for this is also really good. So after I'm recording this, I'm going to listen to some of it, of course. Okay, so correct. Let's go with that. I just launched the game. Sweet. There's something I forgot to say. Oh, yeah, the opening crawl. So I tend to try to look for spoilers in the opening crawl. You might go, look for spoilers. Well, it's not really spoilers because if the game gives you it, it's not a spoiler. Sometimes like there are sometimes if you're doing a let's play, the audience will be like try to dictate the order in which you would do things in a game. It's like if you do that, there's spoilers. It's like, well, if it lets me do that, then the author was okay with me learning this time. So I'm just gonna go with that. I'm not gonna let you dictate what order I do things. Anyway, so I go by philosophy. I play the game how the game developer gave me, and if it gives me information at a certain point, if I just extract that information from it, then I'm going to extract it. So in the opening crawl, there's a lot of text that goes by really fast, and it's really hard to read and absorb. But I did see the word cure in there, and that wouldn't really mean much if you hadn't played Never 7. Your first experience with Infinity would be Ever17, but that shows up in Never 7. And so I'm going to spoil Never 7 again. I'm just going to do it because I want to be able to apply all of my knowledge to this to describe what I'm thinking as I play it. So, Cure syndrome is this fictional psychological disorder, although when I describe it, it will not sound like a psychological disorder, where you believe something to be true that's not true, but that makes it true. In other words, it's if you just believe the psychological disorder, which doesn't, it's like a trope of the disorder. The first time it's introduced, it's actually described as the belief that you are like the protagonist of a story, like the protagonist of a video game, and as such you have special powers or something. But then it's not actually used like that, even though that's how it's first introduced. It's introduced like it's going to be this meta thing, and then it's actually not used like a meta thing in the game. Um, anyway, so now that we know what Cure syndrome is, you know what I know. Let's go into the game finally. It's been half an hour finally into the game. He was in the middle of a blue world. Spacebar does not go to the next screen. It instead brings up like the menu. Okay, this is nice. The birds chirping is not in the background music. That might make editing the audio hard in post though. As far as the eye could see, a sheet of water reached into the distance. I keep forgetting the space bar is like right click. Also, there's a funny black, like the screen moving around. That's not a recording artifact. That's like something that is actually in the game. The May sun shimmered on its surface. Above, high above, stretched a clear blue sky. The fresh new sky looked so glossy and vivid that it might spill down to Earth at any moment. So, some notes about this exposition. Never 7, it began with the main protagonist, who is named Makoto, which I understand is a very commonly used Japanese name. It's very generic. It's like John. He traveled to the island at which the game takes place by boat, but it doesn't actually depict that part. The game starts it with him waking up the next morning, his first day at the camp that he traveled to by boat, and they actually depicted leaving by boat in the grand finale. But at the beginning of Never 7, the setting that he was in was described excessively detailed. They do a very detailed description of the ceiling of his cabin room. And it was kind of awkward. But there's a reason why they did it, plot-wise. I'm just going to leave that out for now. So there might be a reason why they're describing the sky so detailed here. You might see this sky again. There might be a scene later on, we might just get popped right down onto this boat looking up at the sky again. So that's probably why they're describing the sky so, like, weirdly detailed and so maximally. That was all that was reflected in my eyes. The straight line at the horizon stretched into the distance, dividing the sea from the heavens. So tranquil. So I guess we're playing as someone named Takeshi. Okay? He muttered. Awkward use of voice acting there. A solitary seagull traced a gentle arc in the sky as the wind carried it away. The wind, full of the smell of the ocean, blew by him gently. The din of people could be heard in the background. The merry sound of children's voices echoed brighter than the sunlight pouring down. So peaceful. It was like being inside a dream. May 1st, Monday. The title did not get translated. It just got romanized. I don't know what it means. 10 miles from Im Island, Komagahara, Archipelago, Tokyo. It doesn't look like Tokyo to me. It's water surrounded. The man-made island, Inselnul. Well, that's a weird word to use in 2021. Inselnul rose above the waves of the water. It seemed like a place removed from reality. The word utopia might have sprung to mind to describe it. And now we're in for some bad news. Actually, a slab of rock on the boat dock of this floating island were carved the following words. I think it's supposed to read, on a slab of rock on the boat dock of this floating island were carved the following words. Where is heaven? Yeah, I can't. So I presume that heaven. These two kanji, the first two characters you see here, are for heaven, and then the remaining hiragana in this like second word, they're like the where word they're using. Above the sky and at your feet. Leaning out over the railing of the island, he gazed into the ocean depths. In the blue distance, he saw a massive metallic structure swaying gently. So another thing that I notice here is Never 7 was first person. This is third person.
楽園か。
Utopia, huh? He mumbled and looked back casually. And there was Tanuki, or raccoon dog. Oh, well, some random information. I happen to be trying to learn Korean now, and this comes up in the Duolingo Korean course. A raccoon dog, the word for raccoon dog. No, I don't remember what it is. I don't remember any of the words because my ability to retain level 1 information is terrible. His eyes met those of the animals. For a moment, they eyed each other in silence.
どうも。
Hello? So, like, domo is hello. To clear the air, he nodded his head. We know why the raccoon dog did it, okay? The animal turned away, ignoring him. Upon closer inspection, he noticed something biting the animal from behind. So, I didn't understand this at first, so now I feel really silly. It's a person dressed up in a raccoon dog costume, isn't it? It was a young girl. She was shaped like a person. Well, I would think young girls would be shaped like people, wouldn't you? Looking closer revealed that there was something strange about her as well. Namely, a small tanuki attached to the girl's backside. In front of him was a big tanuki being bitten by the girl, who was being bitten by a smaller tanuki. The scene was enough to make him lose his sense of reality. He rubbed his eyes, rubbed them some more, and opened his eyes again. Even after blinking several times, the bizarre scene refused to go away.
ねえ、この子たち、何とかしてくれない？
Could you do something about this kid? Whispered the big tanuki. But the words didn't reach his mind because it was so busy trying to process the absurd scene. So much voice acting is not saying words, it's making sounds like. Well, I couldn't even make the noise. I must be dreaming, right? That was what he was really thinking. A dream. A dream that would not let him wake up. And whiteness. A cold, white reality stretching forever. He felt the difference in temperature on his skin, the shock of it finally forcing him to open his eyes. Wondered how long he had been sitting. Well, that was a jump. It couldn't have been long. He had only been in the dark an hour. He'd been sitting on the beach the whole time. Okay, I'm going to do some settings here because this is going to make the audio awkward to do. I get the sound effects need to go down to 1. Okay. Eating the same ice cream.
冷たい。
It's cold! Well, of course it was. It was ice cream. It had melted into a muddy mess. The melted vanilla ice cream trickled on his hand, spilling on his lap.
冷たい。
That's cold. The ice cream slowly soaked into the fabric of his pants. Finally, the coldness of it had spread completely soaked into his skin. These sentences are awkward. He had been sitting there a while. He had been sitting so long. But the person he was waiting for never came. There was no sign that she would. Wonder why she hasn't come. He didn't know. Why am I here? He felt like he was teetering on the verge of utter confusion. So I'm not really a big fan of the whole haze thing. Something that I had an issue with some of Margaret Peterson Haddock's novels was the main character was always kind of like in a stupor. Not my favorite kind of main character.
やれやれ。
Oh well. He shook his head and sighed. He didn't seem his pants would dry any time soon.
どうしたの？
What's wrong? He sensed a slight movement, and a girl sat down next to him. She was sporting the theme park uniform. A white outfit with a bluish ribbon. She looked like a guide.
もしかして迷子かな？
Are you lost? The beaming, shining, innocent smile appeared on her shining face.
友達とはぐれちゃったのかな？
Did you get separated from your friends?
ううん。
Yeah,
待ってるんだ。
I've been waiting.
待ってる？
Waiting?
いや、
Well,
待ってたんだ。
I was waiting.
待ってた。
You were waiting
私を？
for me?
違うよ。
No. He was flustered at her grinning face peered. He was flustered as her grinning face peered into his.
ここで待ってるように言われたから。
Was told to wait here, so. But you didn't know what for. Why is there like ancient Phoenician writing on her? I guess there's supposed to be stitches around her collar, but it looks like ancient Phoenician letters, sort of.
ふーん。
I see.
でも待ち人来たらずって感じね。
But it looks like they're not coming. She gave him a sideways glance. He felt kind of rejected.
見るからに待ちぼうけの待ちくたびれな少年。
Listen, you've obviously been stood up and are tired of waiting.
そうだ。
I know. Her face suddenly lit up and she clapped her hands together.
ねえねえ、君一人なんでしょ？
Hey, you're alone, right?
え
Huh?
退屈してたんじゃない？レミューの中案内してあげようか。
Well, you're bored, right? How about I give you a tour of Les Mew? She tugged at his arm. Without waiting for his reply, she made him stand.
でも待ち合わせが。
But I'm waiting for someone.
待ち合わせ？誰と？
Waiting? For who?
と。
Who was it? He couldn't think of the name.
まあ、誰だか知らないけど、
I don't know what you're waiting for,
い
but
つまで経っても来ないなら、もう待たなくてもいいんじゃない？
they haven't showed up yet. Don't you think you've waited long enough? She said that happily, almost prancing around.
ね、行こうよ。
What do you say? How about it? Well, I can tell from the Japanese that wasn't two phrases.
うん。
He nodded silently. The girl's name tag glittered brightly against the white fabric of her uniform.
YOU?
Nice, good job reciting the Roman letters, but as if they were English. Do the Japanese actually say YOU? I guess they do, because this is Japanese voice acting. I would think that they might actually say, like, oh, ooh, that's correct. They might say the Y different. I was suspecting they might say the Y differently, because they would say it like the Roman letter and not like the English borrowed Roman letter. Like Abe say instead of ABC. But anyway, I guess they do say it as Y. That was what it said. That's supposed to mean something.
I am you.
It's supposed to be a pun. Yeah, it's supposed to be an English-Japanese cross pun. Of course, I don't really get it because I don't know Japanese, but I know it's supposed to be a pun of some sort. I'm you. In English, that means something very bizarre. Yep. She nodded.
私は田中。
My name's you.
下の名前はユウ。
Your last name is Tanaka, except clearly in the Japanese voice acting she said you, not Tanaka.
You?
You? And he responds to you.
本当はもっと長い名前なんだけどね。
The real name is much longer.
長い
Longer?
そう、果てしなく長い名前。だけど、
Long. But endlessly long. Oh, long, like endlessly long. But
めんどくさいからユウでいいよ。
it's such a pain. Just call me you.
よろしく。
Nice to meet you. With that, she enthusiastically stuck out her hand.
よろしく
Nice to meet you. Without thinking, he shook her hand. And before he had realized it, he'd been sucked along into her rhythm.
じゃあ、行こっか。
So, shall we go? They released hands reluctantly. He looked again at his hand, which had moments before connected them. The vanilla ice cream that had spilled on it had completely melted away. Okay, 11:43 a.m. Except the a.m. comes before the 11:43 because it's Japanese. Huh? He noticed that the two tanuki had formed a line and were proceeding forward. In front of them was a massive gate that was sealed shut. The gate swung open soundlessly, and the big tanuki, little tanuki, and the girl went inside. Finally, my turn. He followed their heels. This was Les Mieux's only entrance for visitors. Several park employees waited at the gate and handed over what looked like earphones to the visitors. It seemed that the earphones were to be used at some point up ahead. He wondered why. Looking around skeptically, but obeying instructions, he stepped into the building. He surveyed the ceiling! Yes, we always gotta survey the ceiling. There were no windows. From the polished round walls, it was clear that the room was dome-shaped. Maybe we'll spawn into this room instead of into the boat, I don't know. He looked around. Many of the visitors who had been waiting in line headed into the room. Among them were friends, amorous couples, people with their families. I actually don't know what amorous means. The Tanuki family had, however, split up, it seemed. The big Tanuki shoved its way through the crowd of people and continued through a door on the other side of the room. The young girl stayed on the same side of the room as the little Tanuki. I've got no clue what those Tanuki are all about, but I guess my friends aren't here either. He didn't see any familiar faces around. He figured maybe they'd already taken the far elevator downstairs. Just 20 minutes earlier, the visitor room had reached capacity, and the friends he had been waiting with had gone ahead, leaving him behind to go down with the next group. Oh well, I'm sure I'll find everyone down below soon enough. This is the backstory. Finally, the gate to the entrance slipped shut quietly. The big Tanuki fiddled with something on the wall, and the room got a shade darker.
皆さん、
It went
どう
from
も
white
こん
to
にちは。
black. Hello, everyone that I accidentally talked over. A dark employee emerged out of the darkness. Oh, a park employee, not a dark employee. He wondered where she had come from. She was wearing a flashy dress. The dim light shining on her made her seem like a character from some dream.
あれ、反応がないですね。
What? No reactions, folks?
もう一度行きますよ。
I'll try that again.
こんにちは。
Hello? It was the girl who, just a little while ago, had been attached to the rear of the large tanuki.
あ、元気のいい女の子発見。
Oh, I found a girl with some spunk.
お名前は？
That may not go over well in Britain. What's your name?
やかみここです。
I am Coco Yagami.
で、こっちが愛犬のピピ。
This is my pet dog, Pee-Pee. So many bad British words. So that isn't a tanuki, it's a dog. I thought they didn't let pets in here. He tilted his head doubtfully.
ココちゃんはレミューに来たのは何回目かな？
So, Coco, how many times have you been to Les Mews?
1,2,3,4,5
So that's counting in
今回が
Japanese.
初めて。
Okay then.
面白い子ね。
Hey, aren't you a funny girl?
よく言われます。
I get that a lot.
ついでだからもっと面白いことやってあげよっか。
You want me to do something even more funny?
え？
What? That was not nani. That was like, eh.
最近ね、友達から超ウケるコメッチを教わったの。
A friend taught me a good joke the other day.
それはまた今度ね。
Maybe some other time. I have an introductory speech I have to get through.
どうして？
Why
こ
not?
れから皆さんにお伝えしなくちゃいけないことがあるの。
Because I have to tell everyone something right now.
そっか。ほいじゃあしょうがないよね。
Oh, okay
で
then.
も、本当に面白いのにな。
It's really funny.
残念だね、ピッピ。
It's too bad, huh, Pee-Pee?
では、改めまして、
And once again,
この度は海洋テーマパーク、レミューにご来場くださいまして、誠にありがとうございます。
on behalf of the Les Mews Marine Theme Park, I'd like to thank you very much for coming.
これから皆さんに、このテーマパーク、レミューのご説明と、少しだけ注意事項をお知らせいたします。
I'm about to give you a brief explanation of the class trial. No, I'm about to give you a brief explanation about the
そんなのどうでもいいから、早く中に入れてよ。
linear keyboard problems. Hey, who cares? Hurry up and let us inside already.
私ももちろん、すぐにでも皆さんをご案内したいのですが、
I would love to take everyone inside, but first I have to give you the safety briefing as always.
申し訳ありません。
But I'm terribly sorry.
実はどうしても、皆さんにはこの加圧室に留まっていただく必要があるのです。
Everyone actually will have to stay in this compression chamber for now.
たった17分間だけです。
It will only take 17 minutes. Minutes. So this is like breaking my prediction already, maybe? Maybe 17 comes up in other ways. I was thinking 17 days. Huh.
その間だけ、どうかお付き合いください。
So it's named after the length of time you have to spend in the compression chamber. So please just bear with me for that long.
まず、この部屋についてですが、ここは加圧室と申します。
First, let me explain a bit about this room. It is called a compression chamber. It is extremely plot relevant, so pay close attention.
これから、この中の空気圧を6気圧まで加圧します。
Starting from now, the air pressure in here is going to rise to 6 atmospheres. That's a lot of pressure.
なぜ気圧を上げなければならないのか、理由は後でご説明するとして、
Why do you think it's necessary to raise the air pressure? I'll explain the reason for that in a moment.
その前に、ひとまず注意事項をお伝えいたします。
For that, let me tell you a few things you should be aware of.
これから気圧の上昇に伴い、皆さんは耳に違和感をお感じになると思います。
As the air pressure rises, you may start to feel a strange sensation in your ears.
高い山の上から降りてきた時と同じように、気圧が鼓膜を圧迫するからです。
It's like when you're descending a mountain or in an airplane. It's because the increased air pressure is pressing on your eardrums.
ですから、耳がちょっと変だなと思われた時には、
So if you think your ears feel a bit strange, just swallow. That will open your fallopian... Wrong term. The tubes that go from your mouth to your ears, and then that will let the pressure equalize. Fallopian tubes. Those are totally the wrong kind of tubes. Okay. Forgot what the tubes that go from your ears to your throat are called.
指で鼻をつまみ、口をしっかりと閉じて、耳抜きをするようにしてください。
Pinch your nose with your fingers, close your mouth tight, and try to pop your ears. That might work too, but that's not the best way.
それでも耳が治らない場合や、体調が悪くなってしまわれた場合には、手を挙げて知らせてくださいね。
If that doesn't get your ears back to normal, or if you don't feel well, please raise your hand and let me know.
その時には、すぐに加圧を停止します。
In the event that happens, we will immediately stop increasing the air pressure. But not bring it back up, so... I don't know what that'll do. Like, there's a lot of things like altitude sickness where it's not that you just want to not decrease the thinness of the air. You want to get back into thicker air. This is the opposite effect.
ところで、耳抜きのやり方がわからない方、いらっしゃいませんか？
By the way, are there any people here that don't know how to pop their ears?
よろしいでしょうか？
Is everything clear then?
では、加圧を始めましょう。
Alright then, we'll initiate the rise in pressure.
加圧時間は、先ほども申し上げましたように、17分間です。
As I said before, the time required to increase the pressure is 17 minutes.
その間に、皆さんにレミューの構造についてご説明いたします。
During that time, I'll explain to everyone about the structure of Les Mieux.
皆さんもご存知の通り、レミューは海の中に浮かんでいます。
Well, usually when these things come up in a mystery game, the structure is not actually that described. Like, the structure is super integral to the plot, but is a little bit different than described in some way. So I gotta look out for that. So as you all know, Les Mieux is floating in the ocean. Well, it's suspended.
水深17メートルから51メートルの海の中に。
At a depth between 51 and 103 feet.
さて、図をご覧いただければお分かりになるように、これらは4つの層に分かれた構造をしています。
Now, if you look at this chart, you will see that the structure is divided into 4 layers.
上から順に、インゼルヌル、エルストボーデン、ツバイトシュトック、ドリットシュトックと呼ばれていますが、
From the top, these are called Incel Null, Erste Boden, Zweit Stock, and Dritte Stock. These don't seem like Japanese words, but okay. Like German.
一般的に言われるグランドフロアから地下3階までのことだとお考えいただいて結構です。
In terms of a normal building, you might think of it as a structure with a ground floor extending down to a 3-story basement.
インゼルヌルとは、ここ、浮島のことです。
Incel Null here is a floating island.
洋上に浮かんだ巨大な人工島。
It is an immense man-made island floating in the ocean.
インゼルは島。ヌルはゼロという意味のドイツ語です。
In German, Incel means island and Null means zero. Really? That's interesting because you use null is a very technical term for empty. Okay, well, at least we're clearing up what incel means. Incel means island, in case you were wondering.
つまりここは地上階。ゼロフロアということになりますね。
In other words, this is a floor 0 or ground floor.
次に、エルストからドリットについてですが、
Next is from Erste or Dritte. Just in. Hey, hey, you. Hey, I'm talking to you. As he was listening to the explanation, someone pulled him from behind. He turned to look around. It was the girl who had just been talking with the park staff. What was her name again? It was Coco.
ねえ、ココのコメッチョ、気にならない？
Hey, don't you want to know about my joke? Oh, that's right. Her name was Coco. And the animal she's holding is Pee-Pee. Pepe or Popo or something. Okay.
気になるでしょ？
You want to know, don't you?
え、何が？
This is probably going to get circled around. Like, she's going to tell the joke, and it's going to come up in the end as a punchline for the whole game somehow.
さっき言おうとしたコメッチョのことだよ。
The joke I was just talking about, it's an ame joke.
米っちょ？
An ame joke?
知らないの？最近流行ってるっしょ？
You haven't heard about them? They're real popular, you know.
知らないな、そんなの。なんだそれ？
No, I haven't. What are you talking about?
アメリカンジョークのことだってば。コメッチョコメッチ
An ame joke is an American joke, get it? Ame joke?
ふーん。
Oh, really?
ョ。気になるでしょ？教えてほしいでしょ？
Makes you want to hear it, right? Want me to tell you? Well, it would have been quicker to just tell me than to do all of this dialogue. Now let's see here. We have file menu. Save. Stick a save here. Trying to figure out how to save. This is tricky. So I have return, file menu, save. It gives me this. Now, I click on this, it doesn't actually save it. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, okay, I tend to not like to save scum my first time through. So I think I just won't really go back and try alternative decisions, but I still might drop saves. But I'm going to do listen to the joke because I think the joke is going to be really plot relevant. The staffer's explanation is also going to be plot relevant, but the joke's going to be more plot relevant. Just a guess.
うん、気になるかも。
Yeah, I guess I'll listen to it.
オッケー。じゃあ教えてあげよう。
Okay, here it goes.
昔、ある男が死んだおじいさんの幽霊に向かってこんなことを尋ねたんだ。
Once there was this guy who was talking to the ghost of his dead grandfather. So he asked him a question.
100万年と言ったら幽霊にとってどれぐらいの時間なんでしょうか？
How long is a million years to a ghost? He wanted to know.
すると幽霊はこう答えた。
The ghost answered,
100万年と言ったらわしにとっては1秒みたいなもんだよ。
A million years is like a second to me.
次に男はこんなことを尋ねた。
Next, the man asked,
幽霊にとって100万ドルってのはどんなもんなんでしょうか？
How much is $1 million to a ghost?
幽霊は答えた。100
And
万
the
ドル。
ghost answered,
それは人間の価値で言えば1セントと同じようなものじゃ。
$1 million, it is but one small cent to me.
その答えを聞いて男はニヤニヤと愛想笑いを浮かべながら最後にこんなことを聞いてみたんだ。
When he heard that, the man pretended to smile all nice and then said,
おお、おじいさん。ならばあなたの1セントを私に一ついただけないでしょうか。ってね。
Well then, Gramps, how about giving me one of your cents then?
幽霊は微笑みながらこう言った。
Laughing, the ghost replied.
ああ、もちろんいいとも。すぐにでもやろう。
Sure. Right away. Is this an inflation joke?
だが、1秒だけ待ってくれないかな。
But can I get you to wait just a second? Okay.
どう？とびっきり生かしたジョークでしょ？
That was a pretty good joke, huh?
ところで、この加圧室に入る前に、皆さんにイヤホンのようなものをお配りしましたよね。
By the way, before we entered this pressurization chamber, we handed out earphones to everyone, remember?
はい、そうです。今皆さんが耳に装着されている、そのイヤホンです。
Yes, that's right. The earphones that everyone is using right now.
これはただのイヤホンではなく、音声変換器と言います。
These are not your average earphones. They are voice alternators.
レミューの中にはヘリウムガスが充満しているので、この変換器を耳につけていないと、アヒルのような声に聞こえてしまうのです。
The Mew is pumped full of helium gas, so without these in your ears, you'll sound like a duck. How do you not suffocate, though? He removed his voice alternators to see what would happen. Haha, it's true, people really do sound like ducks. Then again, maybe they sound more like aliens than ducks. The voices of the people around him jumped to a strange higher note.
なあ、なんか喋ってみてくれよ。
Hey, say something. That audio did not work out right, did it? Like what?
なんだよその声。すげえ笑える。
Haha, your voice is hilarious. Huh? My voice? So if we didn't have the voice acting going, we wouldn't know that. Okay, Coco hadn't been listening to the explanation.
そうだ。さっきのコメッチョ、もう一回聞かせてくれないか。
Can you tell me that joke one more time?
どうして？
Hey,
いいからいいから。
come on, just do it.
昔、ある男が死んだおじいさんの幽霊に向かってこんなことを尋ねたんだ。
Once there was this guy who was talking to the ghost of his dead grandfather. So he asked him a
100
question.
万年と言ったら幽霊にとってどれぐらいの時間なんでしょうか。
How long is a million years to a ghost? He wanted to know.
すると幽霊はこう答えた。
And the ghost answered,
変なの？さっきはちっとも笑わなかったくせに。
What? That's weird. You didn't even laugh at all just a second ago. He put the voice alternators back in his ears and looked back at the staffer again.
さあ、説明はこれで終わりです。
And that pretty much covers it.
あと1分ほどでこの部屋の脇にあるドアが開きます。
In approximately 1 minute, the door on the side of this room will open.
ドアの向こうはエレベーターになっていますので、加工すればその先には素晴らしい楽園が広がっています。
On the other side of that door is an elevator, and on the bottom of it is a brilliant paradise awaits.
それでは海洋テーマパークレミューを心ゆくまでお楽しみください。
We hope that you enjoy yourself to your heart's content here at the marine theme park Les Mew. So I'm thinking maybe this, because this staff member had sprites in the opening crawl, that the park staff might be like that character. It seems like a tutorial character at first. They're just like character doesn't really have a route, but then their route unlocks later. The park staff, as we call her, quote unquote, might be that character.
さて、それじゃ行くか。
So, shall we go? Just as he headed for the
と
elevator.
ころで、ねえ、一人で来たの？
So, you're here by yourself?
ああ、俺いや、友達とはぐれちゃってさ。
Me? No, I got separated from my friends.
迷子なんだ。
So you're lost?
ちょっと違うけど、まあ似たようなもんかな。
Not exactly, but something like that.
エレベーター降りたら、そこら辺歩いて探してみるよ。
I'll head down the elevator and take a look around.
さっきの係の人に相談してみたら？
How about checking with that girl who was just talking?
お、それもそうだな。ちょっとすいません。
I suppose I could do that, excuse me. Looking back, he saw that the employee had already disappeared.
ふーん。じゃあ君、一人でレミューに来たんだ。
So, going back to 1158. You came to Lemieux by yourself?
そうだよ。
Yep, that's right.
それにしてもさ。
Even so. After bending down to wipe away the white stain on his pants, you stood up. Oh, dear.
珍しいよね。男一人で遊びに来るなんてさ。
You don't see that very often, a guy coming to a park like this alone. That was true. It was paradise, an amusement park. In that instant, he had almost forgotten even that.
でも、どうして連れの人と一緒に入場しなかったの？
So why didn't you go into the park with your friends?
わざわざレミューの中で待ち合わせなんて。
Why arrange to meet inside Lemieux?
それは。
That's because, now that she mentioned it, who had said to wait on that bench? Whose idea was it anyway?
まあよい。わけは聞かないでおいてあげよう。
Oh well, whatever, I won't push you. Who was
しか
it?
しあれだ。要するに君は
But I suppose that, well, I mean,
振られちゃったみたいだね。
you've kind of been stood up, right?
え振られた？
Stood up? Stood up? Took a moment for the meaning of the word to register.
つぼしだったのかな。ごめんなさい。
Wow, I hit the nail on the head, didn't I? Sorry. She shrugged, slightly embarrassed.
まあまあ、そう落ち込みなさんな。
Oh well, don't get depressed about it. She changed modes abruptly and let out a hearty laugh. She slapped him solidly on the back.
私がとことん面倒見てあげるからさ。
I'll look out. I'll look out for you, alright?
うん。
Alright. He nodded, a bit overwhelmed. So, I was stood up. I must have been dumped. Huh? You would remember this usually. It's like an amnesia thing. Then again, he wasn't sure exactly what had happened.
でもさ、
But,
何？
oh, there's the nanny. Huh, what?
ユウは今、仕事中じゃなかったの？
Aren't you working right now, you?
固いこと言わないの。
You make a scary boss. No matter how many times he checked, she was definitely still wearing a Lemieux uniform.
暇だったし、ちょうどよかったのよ。
You didn't have anything to do anyway. It's perfect timing, yeah? They got in an egg-like elevator together. The egg slowly began to move. It felt like they were slowly floating up.
上に参ります。
Going up! She whispered mischievously. The elevator was terribly crowded. And everyone was packed in like sardines.
ちょっと暑いね。
It's a little hot, huh? This brings new meaning to elevator scene.
うん。
I'll say. Her face was so close he almost bumped into it. Their bodies were flush against each other. She was soft and warm. He was surprised. I mean, he expected her to be hard and cold, apparently. All of a sudden, he felt embarrassed and started to squirm.
ちょっと少年。
Hey, kid.
変なとこ触らないでよ。
Don't go touching places you shouldn't, she whispered into his ear, puffing out her cheeks. Crammed in the elevator, he couldn't even move an inch.
くすぐったい。あんまり動かないで。
That tickles. Don't move so much.
そんなこと言われても
Don't have a lot of choice.
息ができないんだ。
I can't breathe. This is a trope. He couldn't move, but he couldn't bear standing still either. As he gasped for breath, he noticed her light perfume. Finally, the egg arrived at the top floor, and his suffering was over.
あ
It's very Japanese, too, to just like, cram people in. He let out a cry and bolted from the elevator.
どうしたのいきなり。
What's with you all of a sudden?
待ってよ、少年。少年。
Hey, wait, kid. He sprinted away, leaving you far behind. It wasn't that he was trying to escape from her. He'd seen something. At the edge of his vision, he thought he'd seen someone. Up ahead, that someone was still visible. He chased after whoever it was like a man possessed. I've seen that face before. I'm sure I've seen that face before. That's what his instincts were telling him. But where had he seen them? He tried to sort through his foggy memory. As he stiffed, he kept running forward. So this is someone, he saw from a previous time, like he went back in time, he would see them in the future, right? I presume.
待って
Wait, just using Never17 to try to guess what this plot is. I don't know anything about this plot otherwise. Wait. He felt a desperate need to meet the person. But he had to hurry. Puff. Eventually, he ran out of breath. Holding his pounding chest, he looked up. Ah. There she was. Mixed amongst the other people was a girl standing. Yeah, again, my guess is that he already went through this, went back in time. And so he's seeing her not because he met her before previously in his life, but because he meets her in the future. Just using Never17 to try to make my guess. He was sure that the person that he had been searching for was this girl. It was in the middle of the holidays, but for some reason she was wearing her school uniform. He wondered why she was alone here. Oh yeah, I've got to talk to her. She was by herself. She was alone, just like him. What should I say? Where should I start? Let's see. He needed to calm down and focus. Why is it that I have to talk to her? Why in the world? Who was she? Who was she? She's Tsumugi, I believe, right? From the opening?
あ
Ah! He was caught in a wave of people. Got pushed into an elevator and started to rise towards the surface. 51 feet below sea level, the elevator stopped at basement floor 1. Got off the elevator as if he was being spit at. This floor was called Ever17. He glanced around at his surroundings. She wasn't anywhere to be seen. He thought that they had both ridden on the elevator together, but he had apparently lost sight of her in the crowd when he got off. Lost her. He hadn't even been able to say a word. He felt really depressed. Maybe... Did she call out to me? The idea suddenly popped into his head.
なんだろうこの感じ
What is this? This feeling? His heart was still beating furiously.
どうかされましたか、お客様。
Here's park staff. Okay. Is something the matter? A uniformed staff member different from you was talking to him.
どなたかお探しですか。
Are you looking for someone? She gave him a warm smile as she said this.
あそうです
Yes, I am. Feeling that he seemed a little desperate, he quickly blurted out an answer.
人を探しているんです。
I'm trying to find someone.
待ち合わせをしてて、でも会えなくて。
I was supposed to meet up with them, but we must have missed each other.
どんな方です？お名前は？
Who is it? What is their name?
それは。ちょっと、そこにいるやつ。
Hey, you over there. Wait. Patter, patter, patter. Suddenly, the sounds of footsteps came rushing at him.
僕のこと？
Huh? You mean me?
ああ、そうだ。
Yes, that's right. Running feet braked sharply beside him. The guy was out of breath.
実は聞きたいことがある。
Actually, I want to ask you something.
あ？
Huh? Surprised, he slowly opened his mouth.
なあ、知らないか。
Hey, you don't know, do you? Okay, this guy's name is Takeshi. There was nothing to do but see where the conversation went.
いきなりですまないけど、知らないかな。
Sorry to ask you like this out of the blue, but you don't know, do you?
ここら辺にいなかったかな。俺の知り合いなんだけど。
You haven't seen my friends around here, have you? But how would I know who his friends are?
一人は身長 5.1 フィート、体重17か。サングラスが似合ってない。手は遅いが、足は速くて3枚目。
One of them was about 5'1" and around 140 pounds. Kind of good looking with dorky sunglasses and probably not the type girls would go for. Yes, if you're 5'1" and 140, you're a little chubby.
もう一人はスーツで丸刈り、ネクタイなし。耳にピアスが3つ、鼻に1つ。趣味は編み物。
Another was wearing a suit, no tie, short hair, and has 3 piercings in his ear and 1 in his nose. He likes to knit. I guess they're trying to portray that he's weird by liking to knit, but I sometimes knit, so...
そして最後はこう言って、派手なフリルのたくさんついた地味な花柄ワンピース。
And then there is the only girl in the group who had a kind of simple color flower print one piece with frilly lace. Now don't recognize that.
という、どこにでもいそうな3人組なんだけど、
You know, 3 people you might see anywhere.
見なかった？
Did you see them?
いいえ。
Nope. The young kid shook his head.
そっか。悪いね、呼び止めちゃって。
I see. Well, sorry about stopping you like that. Waving slightly, he left. The youth continued down the corridor ahead. A girl came over to him and started talking to him enthusiastically. This is Coco. He thought he had seen her before. Because he had. Huh. I wonder if she knows that kid. A troubled expression appeared on his face.
ねえねえ、ここのコメッチョ、聞きたくない？
Hey, do you want to hear a joke?
え？君、誰？
What? Who are you? So that's it. She was probably one of those kind of people that would talk to anyone about anything, anywhere, whether you were interested or not. He thought he would go down below. The elevator arrived soundlessly and swallowed the waiting patrons. He went with them further into the depths of Lemieux. He walked around aimlessly. The attractions were all packed with visitors. Everyone had beaming smiles and yelling happily, all evidence of Lemieux's popularity. But still, wandering around a packed and lively amusement park all alone is a bit torturous. He couldn't help trudging around with heavy feet and slumped shoulders. He was on the verge of looking depressed, but he held his expression in check.
しかし参ったね。
What am I gonna do? So are we now establishing that that kid is Takeshi? No, the kid is the person who asked if we'd seen his friends. But if we're playing as Takeshi, then if Takeshi's asking if he'd seen Coco before, Takeshi had some sort of time loop thing too. This is really confusing. Just I guess it's intentional. It's supposed to be confusing, but at least I know right now I'm playing at the character who went through the opening briefing. Walking around in this place blindly, he thought he might never run into his friends. The floor was a lot wider than he'd imagined.
ああ、そうだ、携帯。
Oh, right, my cell phone. He took his PDA multi-purpose communication device out of his pocket. He pushed a button. He didn't have any messages, no mail either, but the problem seemed to be it was out of range. At least that was what the display said.
マジですか。
Are you serious? Yes, you're underwater.
このご時世に県外とは。
I didn't think you could get out of range in this day and age. Oh, I get out of range every day. I'm out of range now of some internet service providers or mobile service providers. Then he recalled they'd said something about this being a giant tunnel in the middle of the ocean where only select radio waves could reach. And that Lemieux used special electronic equipment which wasn't very compatible with mobile equipment. More than anything, they didn't allow PDAs to work inside, so the facility would be completely separated from the world above as part of the attraction. At least that's what they told him at the entrance, but he hadn't listened to a word of it. Because he listened to Coco's joke. I wonder if that decision affected that. Maybe I should get them to broadcast a message over the intercom. He thought it might be best just to ask a staff member. So he decided to look for one. And he finds Hugh. But there wasn't a uniformed person in sight. There weren't any people walking around the corridors either. He turned a corner and entered a completely different corridor. There, right in front of him, was the giant Tanuki. The WS, the one he'd seen at the gate coming in. Oh, it was is a typo. The Tanuki was operating a panel on the wall. I'll bet that's a Lemieux employee. Thinking it perfect timing, he sidled up to the Tanuki and called out.
すいません、人を探しているんです。知り合いです。
Excuse me, I'm looking for someone, a friend.
アナウンスで呼び出してほしいんだけど、名前は、
could I get you to make an announcement over the intercom or something? The name is, The Tanuki slowly turned around and looked at him. But it didn't say anything.
もしもし
Hello? Hello? The Tanuki turned away, avoiding him. He was being ignored. I wonder if it didn't hear me. The Tanuki was wearing a big stuffed suit and was a full head taller than him. There was the definite possibility that his words weren't even reaching the ears inside.
もしもし
Hello,
聞こ
can
え
you
てま
hear
す
me in
か
there? So hard for me not to talk over the Japanese voice acting. He asked the question nicely as he poked the Tanuki in the ribs.
ちょっと贅肉が多いんじゃないかあんた。
Hey, you got a lot of extra flesh here, buddy. He continued talking as he pinched, pulled, and released the Tanuki's flank. He thought that for a mascot suit, the Tanuki shot him a pretty realistic glare before it turned and walked away. Upset at that, he grabbed the Tanuki's shoulder.
おい、お客が困ってるのに、その態度はないんじゃない
Hey, what kind of attitude is that? And when a visitor's in trouble? Whomp. He'd been gut punched. The Tanuki had actually slugged him. Not even his parents had ever even really spanked him before. It had been a total cheap shot. The Tanuki had landed a solid uppercut.
こら、タヌキお前な
Hey, Tanuki, I mean you. He went down to his knees and keeled over. Nearby visitors reacted.
お客様、どうしました
Is everything alright? Oh, just then, a park employee appeared from the door.
お腹でも痛いんですか
Are you having stomach pains? I'm going to throw the Tanuki under the bus here, because that's what I would do.
タヌキが俺にボディーブローを。
that Tanuki caught me with a body blow. It appears that that was transliterated, because he actually said body blow in the Japanese.
あ
Huh? The employee gave him a surprised look.
殴られたんだよいきなりあのタヌキに
Got sucker punched by that Tanuki. He pointed at the big Tanuki. The Tanuki's expression didn't change, because it was a costume. But it turned and started to run. The Tanuki's silhouette pranced lightly away into the distance. And in an instant, it had disappeared down the walkway.
ああ、あれはですね。
Oh, that is, Staffer looked around, looked after the Tanuki as she spoke.
タヌキじゃなくて、レミュール。
That's not a Tanuki, that's a lemur.
レミュール
What? He rubbed his still aching stomach as he spoke.
そう、レミュール。キツネザル。
Yes, lemur, you know, a fox-like monkey.
名前はミュミューン。
Its name is Mumyun. Lemuel had been named after the continent Lemuria, a legendary land. According to the British zoologist Shatler, the Lemurian continent preceded the existence of islands scattered throughout the Indian Ocean. Lemurs were scattered throughout Africa, the island of Madagascar, Asia, and Indonesia. While investigating the distribution of these fox monkeys, Shatler came to believe a continent had existed in the Indian Ocean, adopting the British geologist Bradford's hypothesis. He named this continent Lemuria. However, the German zoologist Haeckel, there's also a German bassoon maker named Haeckel, anyway, contended that this continent was the origin of mankind.
あの着ぐるみはレミューンのマスコットキャラの一つ、ミュミューン。
Mumyun is one of Lemu's mascots.
で、どうしたんですか？お腹が悪いんですか？それとも。
What happened? Are you ill or?
いやもういいんだ
No, I'm fine. Don't worry about me.
もう済んだから
It's over anyway.
ああ、そうですか。
Oh, I see. The staffer disappeared. I see. That wasn't a Tanuki, that was Mumyun. He wasn't sure why Mumyun had hauled off and punched him, but he knew that wondering about it wouldn't help. So he decided to forget about it. He needed to be getting somewhere.
もう少し自力で探してみるか
I'll look around on my own a little more. He muttered this as he composed himself. He knew there should be several attractions at the other end of this corridor. His friends might have been looking for him as he waited in line.
でどっちに行きゃいいんだ
So which way should I go? His legs were so tired that he could barely move. This is the world's worst theme park. And that was exactly how he felt. Okay, so back to the kid. Oh well. Hit by a slight dizzy spell, he leaned against the wall. So he just talked to Takeshi, and Takeshi told him that he didn't see any of his friends.
なんなんだ一体
What in the world? He sighed. He was fully and utterly beat. The staffer that had just been talking to him had vanished somewhere. Yu wasn't around either. He had lost sight of the other girl as well. He was alone again.
ここに何しに来たんだっけ僕は
What did I come here for? He thought that maybe he should have waited where he was before after all. Having lost his destination, he rode the elevator from the aquarium and returned to basement floor 2. Basement floor 2. Jouet stock. The second floor. I screwed up. The rest area is down one more level. He felt like he had come a long way from the elevator room. He didn't know which path he should take or go down. Which way?
ちょっとこっちに来てくれない？
Would you come here for a moment? A voice called to him from somewhere. From somewhere. From the shadows of the path, the owner of the voice was beckoning to him. But the hand did not belong to a human.
ほら早く来てよ。
Will you? It was the whispering voice of a young woman. Not a human, but a young woman. Her bulky black arm was swaying rhythmically. Disturbed by the difference between the voice and its owner's appearance, he moved hypnotically in its direction. The hand and arm clearly belonged to a tanuki. It was a big tanuki.
ここどこだかわかる？
So you know that the tanuki is a girl or a woman, okay? Do you know where we are? He was led by the tanuki into a room at the end of the walkway. This is the place where they keep the dead bodies? No, it's just a locker room. Okay. Or rather, packed into it.
ここは
Is this the girl's changing room? You saw a uniform, like the one you had been wearing, packed away inside an open locker. Wait, so is Tsumugi the person in the Yumyun uniform? We might just find out. Hey, I can even see some woman's underwear. The room smelled like perfume. The air was saturated with a scent so strong it almost made him choke. The smell was about to overwhelm him. He struggled to get his mind under control and maintain his focus.
ねえここどこだかわかる？
Hey, do you know where we are? The tanuki asked him the same question again. Come to think of it, why was she a tanuki anyway? He had no
こ
clue.
こは
This
更衣室。
is the changing room. That's only one word, the koisht. She said this before he could answer.
更衣室っていうのは
Changing rooms are
内緒の行為をするところ。
a place to keep secrets away from prying eyes. She said this quietly.
行為
Secrets? Wham! Suddenly his vision faded. Everything went completely dark.
え
Huh? Oh, she just turned the lights off. I thought like she punched him out.
それ預かっておいてくれる？
Will you look after this for me? Huh? What? What? Look after? He didn't understand.
ほらちゃんと着せてあげるから。
Here, I'll help you put it on right.
あの
Oh, she's gonna put the Tanuki costume, the Yumyun costume on him. Wear it? He had no idea what she was talking about. Well, you are dense. He didn't understand why, but he couldn't move. He was powerless to resist her and let her do what she wanted. In a moment, something completely covered his body.
これでよし。
Hehe. This should do it.
じゃあとはお願いね。
Alright then, I'll leave the rest to you. And the light sound of her footsteps faded into the distance. The last thing he heard was the click of a door shutting. He heard the sound, but he did not see her leave. What did she do to me? Well, as far as we know, she just stuffed him in a tanuki costume. His face felt heavy. His body felt heavy. He had tunnel vision, and for some reason his body was bristling with hair. Could it be that this is the mascot outfit? You don't say. When he shook his head, he made a sound like bristles brushing something. And there was a smell. There was some other scent from inside the costume. Yes, there's perfume. The sweet smell that made him dizzy. It pierced deep into his brain. Before he knew what was going on, he had opened the door and was shuffling out into the pathway. So back to Takeshi. Without thinking, he let out a cry. He had found it. It's that tanuki. He had just been told that it was not a tanuki, but Mew, a fox-like monkey. But that information had already disappeared from his mind. I forgot its name. It doesn't matter no. He's the one that hit me and ran away. He didn't want revenge. But he did want to ask it why it had done what it did. Without making a sound, he slowly approached the tanuki mascot, Mew. And as soon as he got behind it, he quickly grabbed the costume by the head and revealed the kid. There.
誰
Who are you?
お前こそ誰だ
I should be asking you that.
いきなりあんなことしやがって
Why would you do something like that?
あんなことって
Huh? What did I do?
しらばっくれるな
Don't play dumb with me.
何のことだかわからないよ
I have no idea what you're talking about. So the story goes, this girl who is wearing the Yumyun costume punched some guy and then decided to change out of the Yum costume so that someone else would get framed up for the punching. Okay.
お前だろ俺を殴ったのは
Now you would think that that girl would be a girl we saw before, but that girl wasn't you because you and the girl in the costume were both in the same screen at the same time. So, was it the staff member in the costume? I mean, in the opening scene where Coco was biting onto the tail, it seemed from the voice acting that the person inside the Yun costume was a man.
違うよ違う知らない
No, I didn't. I have no idea what you mean.
嘘つけ忘れたのか
Liar, what? Did you forget?
嘘じゃない女の人が
I'm not lying. This girl
突然この着ぐるみを渡してきて
gave me this outfit out of nowhere and...
あれお前そういやさっき会ったっけいつの間に着替えたんだ
What, you just met her? When did you change?
今来たばっかりだよ僕は
I just put it on.
今来たばっかりおい何言ってるんだ
just put it on. What are you talking about?
だけどどうしてこんな
Why do this?
こんな
This... At this point, the Tanuki collapsed. He collapsed in full Mew regalia.
どうしたおい
What? Hey! Takeshi shook his shoulders, but there was no response.
誰か来てくれなんだか様子がおかしい
Somebody come quick, something's not right here. He yelled. Visitors watched from a distance.
どうしました
What's the matter? A female employee had heard the fuss and came running.
ああんたさっきのちょっとこいつ急に倒れて
You're the girl from before. This guy just collapsed all of a sudden.
ちょっと見せて
Let me see. The employee took the pulse of the fallen youth. Takeshi wondered if she had any medical knowledge.
大丈夫だけどこのままにはしておけないね
He's alright, but we can't leave him here like this.
手伝うよ
I'll help.
お願い
Great, thanks. So I guess we're going back to the kid. Why had this happened? Because someone wrote it that way. I had no idea. No idea where he was, Or had he gone? Shaking, shaken, feeling ill. He could feel hair from the costume rubbing along both of his sides as two people carried him. Rubbing. He wished they'd get the mascot suit off him quickly. The fur felt nasty. It was hot. So hot. So hot, he couldn't stand it. The heat made him feel faint. His consciousness felt like it would drift away. Why had this happened? It was strange. So strange. It wasn't him or her. He heard a different voice from somewhere. He had been called to the infirmary.
でもなんだろう、貧血？
I wonder what it could be. Is he anemic?
着ぐるみが暑かったんじゃないか？着慣れないみたいだったから。
Maybe it was just the mascot suit. Maybe he couldn't get used to wearing it.
ありえるね。熱射病かな。
It's possible. It could be heat exhaustion.
なんとかなりそうか。
Does it look like he'll be okay?
重い病気じゃなさそうだし、しばらく休ませておけば大丈夫だよ。
It doesn't appear to be anything serious. A little rest and he should be fine.
そっか。
I see.
ありがとう、手伝ってくれて。あとは私が見るから。
Thanks for your help. I'll take it from here.
それじゃあ頼むよ。
And now the kid and you reunite. All right, then. He opened the sliding door and left the room.
人助けか。
Saving people can sure be stressful.
俺はここに何しに来たんだっけな。
You gave yourself way too much credit there. Now, what was it that I came here to do? A cool breeze was blowing along the walkway. I actually forgot what he came there to do. I thought he was trying to find some staff member to like make a call on the intercom or something, but like he never got punched in the gut. Then he met you. I don't know what he was trying to do after that. Breeze. Where is it coming from? He wondered where he had come from. He saw something faintly. A ceiling. They're just like, are they just making fun of the opening from Ever17 over and over again by just describing ceilings? Sheets. Oh, never mind. A bed. Reminds me of that Chubby Emu video where he referenced PewDiePie by saying ceilings are cringe. Floor gang has always been where it's at. Okay. He had been put to sleep on a bed. On a bed in the infirmary. He saw something again. Below the sick room bed. Who was on the bed below? Who is this? This isn't me. Of course not. Oh no, is this going to be a body swapping plot? He decided to go further down the hall, so going back to Takeshi now. The third floor underground, they called it Dietrichstock. Or Drittstock, because it's German, I don't know how to pronounce German. The guys, they gotta be lined up waiting for a crowded ride somewhere.
すいません、乗ります。
Hey, sorry, I'm getting in. He dashed into the elevator. The doors reopened silently and closed again. Huh? One other person had gotten on. A girl? A girl. More like a young woman, I guess. One girl had gotten on. She was about high school age. The elevator floated upward an instant before descending. There was the faint sound of movement and vibration. And then his eyes met with the girl's. He wondered why. The girl stared at him suspiciously. Well, that's usually what happens if there's two people alone in a room, is they tend to make eye contact.
何なのあなた。
Just who are you?
どうしてこんなところにいるの？
Why are you here?
なんでついてくるのよ。
Why are you following me? I'm gonna do this one, because it's the most interesting.
お前こそ何なんだ。
Just exactly who are you?
俺が何かしたか？
Did I do something wrong? Keep hitting space instead of enter.
したわ、さっき。
Yes, you did. Just now.
さっき？
Just now? He was getting more and more confused.
つまり、
I
あん
mean,
まり邪魔をしてほしくない。だから、
I just don't want you to get in the way, that's all.
邪魔って何を？
Get in the way of what? Jolted suddenly, the elevator stopped. Is this gonna get knocked out? He looked at the ceiling. The lights flickered unsteadily.
なんだ？
What was that?
まさか、
It couldn't be.
まさか何なんだよ。
Couldn't be. Couldn't be what? Couldn't be? He wondered if something had gone terribly wrong. It was strange. Very strange. So do we skip back to the kid there and they just kind of like bridge the dialogue over? Yeah, they did. Okay. So they just tried to confuse you by making it couldn't it be in two different contexts and juxtaposing them. Who is this? Oh, it's her. We've finally met. I've been looking for you this whole time. But his voice couldn't reach her. Blank, blank. 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 He couldn't hear her voice either. No matter how much he tried. No sounds reached him now. What's going on? But he saw a figure faintly. He was able to make sure. He could see himself and the girl talking over there. He saw it on the other side. I can see myself over there. He watched, and he watched. That's strange. One wasn't expecting this kind of artwork in this game. No, it's odd. What's the difference between strange and odd? If I'm watching them, then who is the me watching me? So it's either body swapping or time travel or a mixture of the two. Something felt out of place. Now he knew the truth, and his lips trembled. Who is that? Who could the me over there be? He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It was like a dream. It was like he was watching the continuation of a dream. Anyway, the dream couldn't have felt so powerfully raw. They keep bridging the dialogue over. All the screaming. The sound of running feet. The shrill wailing of sirens. I gotta check the settings, because... yeah, voice is on 3, sound effects is on 1. So... the shrill of wailing sirens, which is indeed happening. It wasn't a dream or an illusion.
まさかって何を知ってる？
B, you know something about this?
何も知らない。
I don't know anything.
あなたは何を知ってるの？
Do you know something?
知るわけないだろ。
How could I know anything? I just got in the elevator because I thought I would go to another floor. The lights gradually dimmed and finally went out. Switching to the other person! Why? He had no idea. He didn't know. There's no way he could know. But there on the bed, there on the bed, there, the bed below, the bed on top, the bed below, who are you? Who? Stop! Please stop. Don't come out. Please don't come out. Stay inside. Don't crawl out of there. No, stop, please. Stop. 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 So did the girl exit the infirmary? No. There was nothing to fear. It was all right. Because there was no longer anyone. Because there was no one there.
おい、誰かいないのか
Way to confuse the tar out of your player. Hey, who's there? Is there someone there?
俺はここだここにまだいるんだ
I'm here, I'm still in here.
誰か出してくれよ
Somebody, get me out of here.
返事をしてくれ
Answer me, please.
誰かいませんか
You keep bridging. Is there anyone there? Nobody answered. The surroundings were filled with silence.
なんだ誰もいないのか
What? Is anybody there?
一人か
So I'm alone. He burst with laughter. The ultimate feeling of liberation. There was no one to restrain him now. And he ran. But no one stopped him. Getting there was easy. And all that was left was to aim for the center. Just take a step. It was simple. He threw his body into the water. He sank. Deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, back to Takeshi. Sound died away. The embrace of unbelievably pure silence. Not even a beam of light pierced the darkness. All he could hear was repetitive, heavy breathing. Back to the kid. He lost himself, mind short-circuiting. His vision narrowed and was overrun with blue. Deep blue. Well, all I see is black, but whatever you see, kid. Blue. Something was strange, besides that I was drowning. He wondered if it really was blue. Okay. Back to Takeshi, apparently. Even though he was perfectly still, it seemed as if his heart was racing. Sweat poured off of him. His breathing was ragged and labored. Back to the kid. Gradually, his consciousness dissolved into the darkness. Black. Yep, that's right. Endless black. There's no mistaking it this time. It's like the beginning of my video. Everything was stained black. There was no boundaries to this color. Back to Takeshi, who's also into black because he's in a dark elevator. His eyes hurt. The ringing in them wouldn't stop. Oh, his ears hurt. He felt pressure expanding in his lungs. Is he getting the bends? Is he depressurizing super fast? He felt queasy, sick to his stomach.
気圧が低下してる。
The air pressure is dropping. Wait, this girl, she was wearing the Unium uniform, wasn't she? The girl that's in the elevator with Takeshi, she was wearing the Unium uniform, socked him in the gut. And she said, "Why do you keep following me?" Because he was following the person in the uniform. I get it now. Okay. So she snuck in and infiltrated this facility by putting herself into a mascot costume. She was sabotaging things. Like she was messing with the control panel. And messing with that control panel was setting up this thing that she did with the elevator that she's doing now. Okay, I get it. I forgot. I need to pop my ears. With a pop, the air building inside my ears was released. Damn.
出口はどっちだ
Which way to the exit? Back to the kid. Pitch black. Nothing moved. He didn't move either. There wasn't any sign of a breeze. He didn't hear anything. Just echoes from something invisible. Time froze to a stop. If he stopped here, he felt like he would forget that he was even alive. It was his intuition. Only a little more. No. It was no good. He had to get out, but he didn't know which direction to go. He had to get himself out of this darkness. Had to... I presume he's swimming. Swimming for the surface? But what could he do? What could... He didn't know. He didn't know. Just then, he felt a faint, warm light. Light. A blade of light sliced through the flat world of darkness. And he knew the direction was over there, and that there might be a way out, if he can get over there. So, I had to choose, I've got to find my friends, and who am I? Well, I know Takeshi's the guy trying to find his friends. Who am I is the question the kid is asking. But I think I'm on the kid now, so I'm going to go with who am I? I didn't know where I was, but I quietly opened my eyes. Next thing I knew, I was on a bed. The ceiling was so white it was slightly blinding. It smelled like disinfectant. I wondered where I was.
気がついた？
Are you awake now? The shadow passed above me on the bed. I wondered who it could be. Wait a minute. Somewhere, I felt like I had met this person somewhere before.
具合はどう？
How are you doing?
顔色は良さそうだけど。
You look all right anyway. Who was it? I knew her. I was sure that I knew her. Still, I couldn't put my finger on anything about her that I knew. The more I thought about it, the more the area around my temples pounded with pain.
あれ？やっぱりダメそうかな。
I guess it's no good then?
頭痛いの？
Does your head hurt? I pressed my temples with the fingers of both hands, nodding slightly.
わかった。じゃあ、ちょっと待ってて。
I see, just wait a second, alright?
痛み止め探してみるから。
Try to find some painkillers. She laughed sweetly and stepped away from me. I raised myself up and looked around. The room was completely white, with a number of beds tidily lined up in a row. Looking behind me there was a curved glass window on the wall. I got off the bed and put on my shoes, which were neatly arranged below me. I approached the window. Outside, as far as the eye could see, was one endless sheet of blue. Transparent waves of light swayed gently in the deep, dense navy mist. I put both my hands on the wall and pushed my face up against the glass. Just then, a flash of silver light darted across my vision. For an instant, I was afraid. Then I noticed it was just a fish. This is the middle of the ocean?
どうしちゃったの？
What's the matter? At some point, the girl had come to stand beside me.
当たり前でしょ？
Of course it is.
ここはレミューの救護室なんだから。
This is the Lemieux infirmary. Infirmary. Lemieux? The instant I heard that word, a flash of searing light reappeared in the back of my mind. That's right. I'd come to Lemieux. The theme park Lemieux floating in the ocean. And I had been walking around Lemieux with her. There were ancient ruins and the whale floating in the darkness, the jellyfish gondola and merry-go-round. But why had I come to this place to Lemieux? Had I come for fun? Of course I had. This was a theme park after all. But was that right? Was that really the reason? Violent head pain struck me again. I shook my head again and again, my face distorted with the pain.
ちょっと大丈
Hey, are you alright?
夫？もう少し横になってた方がいいんじゃない？
Shouldn't you rest a little more? She helped support me as I returned to the bed.
はい、痛み止め。
Brought you some headache medicine. She held 2 white pills in her left hand. In her right hand was a cup filled with water. White pills. 2 of them. Is that important somehow? I would do no thanks. No thanks, I replied instantly. I looked away from her hand.
どうしたの？頭痛いんでしょ？
What's the matter? Your head hurts, right? Yeah, but in games like this, you don't take the pills. Okay, just trust me.
だったら飲まないと痛み引かないよ。
Then if you don't take these, the pain won't go away. No, it wears off after a while. Pain continued to throb through my skull. The pills in her hand would help to ease that pain. I understood all of that. Yet for some reason, I wanted to look away from the medicine.
あ、わかった。
Oh, I get it.
さては君、
I see you.
お薬苦手なんでしょ
You don't like the taste, right?
う。もう情けないな。
That's kind of sad.
でも大丈夫。この薬ちっとも苦くなんてないから。
But that's okay. The medicine isn't bitter at all. It's just like chalk.
苦いところか、芳醇で濃厚な甘みが口いっぱいに広がっていき、それでいて少しもしつこくなく。
This is creepy. It's more than not bitter. It's got a mellow, sweet, full flavor that floods throughout your mouth without an aftertaste. Ouch. My headache had gotten worse.
ほら、言わんこっちゃない。
I told you so. How would she know, though?
どうしても飲めないって言うなら、お
You
尻から
really-
座薬を入れちゃうぞ。
If you really can't drink it, then I can give it to you anally via a suppository. For an instant, I feared my chastity might be violated and grabbed the belt of my pants. All right, I'll drink it. Feeling half threatened, I drank the medicine even though I didn't want to. Okay, so this is first person now. So, okay. So after I hit Who Am I went first person. It was super bitter.
多分、軽い気圧障害だと思うよ。
It's probably just mild barotraumas or decompression sickness.
よくいるのよ、お客さんで。
It happens to a lot of visitors.
突然具合が悪くなって運び込まれちゃう人が。
They just feel ill all of a sudden and get carted in here. As she said this, she slyly took the cup from my hand. And then I give them these bitter pills. I sink my head back into the fluffy pillow. No, usually, like, ibuprofen and stuff like that just tastes like chalk.
そもそも無理があるのよ。
It's a bit of a stretch coming down here anyway.
慣れない人がいきなり6気圧の中で長時間活動するのなんてさ。
People with no experience just jumping to a 6 atmospheres for a long period of time. Sheesh.
人間は地表の気圧の中で快適に過ごせるように作られてるんだもん。
The air pressure in the Earth's atmosphere is made for people to live comfortably.
こんな密度の濃い空気を吸ってたら体が拒絶反応を起こしちゃうのは当然だと思う。
Of course, people are going to have bad reactions to breathing air this thick.
空気と初恋は淡い方がいいに決まってるの。
Air and first love. Both should be light. No doubt about that.
コーヒーと初恋なら濃い方がいいけどね。
Coffee and your first time. Well, those, of course, are better thick. Yes, I have to read this stuff. She touched my face with the palm of her hand. The backs of her slender fingers stroked my cheek. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording right here. Just because I'm running out of time to record, and this is already 2 hours long. But I'll have to jump right into this scene at the beginning of the next one. I'm also gonna save on recording just so that you can see that be done. Where is it? Save. Okay, yeah, pretty confusing so far. So it switches back and forth between the kid and Takeshi, and it switches back and forth between third person and first person. Um, and it starts switching more and more rapidly, and it tries to confuse you because they're both in this dark situation. The kid in some sort of illusion, and Takeshi because he's trapped in an elevator with some person sabotaging the amusement park and infiltrated it by using the Yun costume. Some like edgy girl. And I thought that, and then it gives you this option where you say, I have to find my friends, or who am I? Where I have to find my friends is what Takeshi's thinking, who am I is what the kid is thinking. But it was on the kid's iteration of the switching. So I hit who am I? But I wonder if it's like testing whether or not you got the right answer, or whether or not it actually will kind of go to Takeshi if you click, I need to find my friends. So I don't know how that's happened. Don't know what's going on there. You is weirdly hitting on the kid and has a bizarre personality. That's all we know about you. And that's it. So it's hard to guess who's like the person behind it all, like who's the mastermind, because the plot just started, so I don't even know what the situation is. Usually stuff like Zero Escape or Never 7, they exposit a situation, like you're at this camp. Well, seminar camp or whatever. You're gonna be here for this much time with these people. They're just gonna hang out. Or in case of Zero Escape, you are in this facility and you tried to get out of it. Either try to get out of it in 9 hours, or you're trying to get out of it before everyone else does. Man, I'm still hiccuping. And they like exposit the whole puzzle. Like same thing with like Danganronpa, right? They exposit the whole situation at the beginning. Oh dear. Here they haven't exposited a situation. And I was going so long in recording because I was trying to get to where they started expositing a situation, and they never did. So, whatever, I guess.